Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to My Fantastic Life. Today I'm going to be discussing something that I've wanted to create a video about for quite a while, and that is distinguishing between raw, virgin, and processed extensions. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely stay tuned. So I've been purchasing weave for a very long time. I've spent lots of money on hair. Some of that money was wasted because I was told hair was virgin or raw, and it really wasn't. And so it bothers me when I see companies promoting hair and saying that it's one thing, but it's really not. So my objective today is just to give you a few tips on how you might be able to better distinguish between hair that has been processed and hair that has not been processed. So there are three main categories of hair. There's raw hair, there's virgin hair, and then there's processed hair. Now there's kind of a little bit of confusion and debate about virgin versus processed hair, and I'll explain that. Raw hair is hair that has not been altered in any way since being cut from the donor's head. So that means the hair was placed in a ponytail, it was cut, wefted, probably cleaned and conditioned, hopefully. But that's it. There's been no manipulation of the hair whatsoever. Now, I want to emphasize that this is after it's been cut. So if the donor put a vegetable rinse in their hair, when you wash it, you may see the results of that. But it's still considered raw hair. Here's a photo of an example of raw hair. Next is virgin hair. So again, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, but some people define virgin hair as hair that has not been chemically manipulated in any way, right? So it may have been steam processed, but it hasn't been chemically processed. So an example would be if you took some raw hair and you put flexi rods in it and you boiled it to infuse a curl pattern into the hair. That's an example of a steam process. So technically, I think that's virgin hair because it hasn't been chemically processed. But it has been processed because you've changed the pattern of the hair. Some people don't consider that virgin hair. Some people consider any type of processing, whether chemical or steam, to be processed hair. And it is not virgin hair. So that's kind of where the debate is. I'll leave it up to you for what you think makes the most sense, but that's the difference. Finally, there's hair that has been chemically processed. So this could be hair that's been dyed or hair that's had some sort of chemical process done to alter its texture or its pattern. Here's a way to distinguish. With raw hair, especially if it's curly or wavy, it's not going to have a consistent curl or wave. It's not going to be fluid, it's going to be different. It may be a little poofy, it may be a little frizzy, but it is not going to be completely uniform. Now with processed hair, you've probably seen hair that is considered Brazilian wavy, and it's usually like one perfect S. Or maybe you've seen Brazilian curly. And I'm just using Brazilian as an example. There are lots of different textures, but it may have like a super uniform, perfect curl. That's how you know the hair has been processed in some way. It may have been steam processed, but it's definitely been processed because natural hair does not grow that way. Doesn't matter what your race is. Your hair is going to have some variety in it. So that's one way to distinguish. If someone's selling you hair and they're saying that it's, raw, but it's super perfect, it's probably not. One thing to note is typically with that sort of hair, when you brush it out, it doesn't necessarily look as uniform, but when you first get it or after you wash it, usually you'll see that really tight pattern. The last thing that you can do to test your hair is do the burn test. So when you burn real raw hair, right? You can try this on a strand of your own hair, but it sort of like evaporates. It burns really, really quickly and it just poof, right? When you burn hair that's been processed or has any sort of chemicals on it, usually it's going to get, or if it's not hair at all, it's going to get tacky. It may burn, it's not going to burn as quickly as the raw hair does. So that's kind of another way that you can distinguish between the different types of hair. I'm not creating this video to say that processed is bad because I have processed and unprocessed hair. I love the textures that you can get, and you can guarantee that you get them with processed hair. Now the hair I have is steam processed. I prefer not to use chemical process. chemically processed hair. I'm allergic to a ton of things. But I'm not saying that one is bad and the other is better or anything like that. Raw hair is going to cost more for sure. But it's up to you to decide what you want. I just want you to be an informed consumer when you're purchasing hair so that you can recognize if someone is saying hair is raw, but it's probably not. I hate when people lie about that. So hopefully that video was helpful. If you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, please leave them below. All right, until next time, peace.